What's going on, guys? It's hard to believe it, but football season is like less than 2 months away. I'm actually really excited about it. And it also means fantasy football is right around the corner. And me, myself, I've been playing fantasy for probably like 10 years now. I love it. I do a lot of research and stuff like that. And I figured now that I'm doing YouTube stuff, I might as well just put my advice out there and just see how it goes. So let's get into it. The first guy on the list, we have a guy who missed all of last year, Cameron Meredith. He is a converted quarterback to wide receiver. That was in college 2 years ago in 2016. Kind of just burst on the scene with Chicago and Jay Cutler. Had 888 yards, 66 receptions, and 4 touchdowns. Of course, missed all of last year with an ACL tear. The Bears did not match the offer that the Saints made for Meredith, making him a New Orleans Saint this year. And it's a really interesting situation because he's going to be playing alongside guys like Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Ted Ginn Jr., just a really good team in New Orleans. And if Cameron Meredith sees enough targets, I think he's going to be a really valuable asset this year. And his ADP is 137, so I mean, you can scoop him up pretty late. I just think he's like a low-risk, high-reward type of player. And, if he plays anywhere near the way he did in 2016, you compare Drew Brees to Jay Cutler, it's just night and day. Cam Meredith can be I think like a 70 catch, possibly 1,000 yards and like 6 touchdowns type of season, and that would be great production for a guy who's picked at 137. So, I mean, if you're looking for receiver help in the later rounds, I definitely believe in Cameron Meredith's ability to get it done this year. Now on to my least favorite position in fantasy, the tight end position. It's really hard to find someone consistent throughout a full season, so I actually threw in a few tight ends this year. So reasons to buy into George Kittle of the 49ers. Well, he's an athletic freak. He's 6'4", 250, ran a 4.52 at the Combine 2 years ago. He has little competition at his position. Garrett Selleck, obviously, not going to give him much of a run. Kyle Shanahan is a really good offensive coordinator. He was given 63 targets last year, and he still put up 43 receptions, over 500 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Got a little better when Garoppolo was there, and the Niners, as an overall team, definitely should be better. They get a full season of Garoppolo. Jerick McKinnon joined the team. Weston Richburg joined the team. Pierre Garçon's going to be back, so the Niners should be much improved offensively. And George Kittle is the type of guy who, when you look at tight ends, you just want guys that are just physical freaks. I mean, like Jordan Cameron, for example, came out of nowhere, like probably like 6-7 years ago. There's so many examples of tight ends that are just really athletic and they come out of nowhere. Julius Thomas with Peyton Manning that 1 year. So, it's possible George Kittle could be that next guy. And, I think as long as he stays healthy, he battled some injuries last year. But as long as he's healthy, I think he has a good shot this year at being a top 10 tight end. So I would definitely take a shot on him. Next, another tight end. This is a pretty easy one. A second-year tight end, David Njoku. He was picked somewhere around like 20 in the draft 2 years ago. He's on the Browns, of course, and the Browns are a much improved team, which is a big reason why I am picking Njoku to break out this year. His quarterback will be Tyrod Taylor, and I think Tyrod Taylor is overlooked a lot. Tyrod Taylor had a good connection with Charles Clay in Buffalo. You look at Clay's stats over the last 3 years. He was a pretty solid tight end, and I mean, if you compare Njoku to Charles Clay, player to player, I mean, Njoku's crazy athletic, much more athletic than Clay is, and probably just a better overall player. I mean, maybe not yet in his career, he hasn't proved enough, but you look at an upside standpoint, Njoku could be a lot better. You look at the team around him, he has Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry, Duke Johnson, Carlos Hyde. Who else did they have? They have Corey Coleman. I mean, the Browns are going to be much more improved this year. It should be I don't think the Browns are going to win like 10 games, but they should win like 6 or 7 and at least be a competent team. He doesn't have much competition. Seth DeValve, he split time with him last year, but I clearly expect Njoku to be the lead guy this year. His coach, Hugh Jackson, says he expects a huge jump as well, and so am I. So, I mean, he's an athletic freak just like Kittle is. He's 6'4", almost 250, ran a 4.6 40, and his vertical is 37.5. So, if I could pick anyone to break out at the tight end position this year, I'm going to pick David Njoku. I have a lot of confidence in this one, so I really hope it pans out for him, and hopefully that Charles Clay connection will now be David Njoku. Next, you probably saw him in the thumbnail. It's Kenny Golladay, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. He'll be in his second year. Golladay showed some promise last year. He had a really good week 1, had a few other good weeks. Pretty much a year ago from now, I mean, he was like everyone's sweetheart coming into the year. He was like everyone's sleeper. It didn't pan out exactly, but Golladay definitely has like all the ability to be a really good wide receiver. And when you start talking about tall receivers from Detroit, of course Calvin Johnson comes to mind, and no one expects Golladay to be Calvin Johnson, but if we can get like 3/4 of that, we'll definitely take it. Golladay is 6'4". Matt Stafford trusts him a lot on 50-50 balls, as you can see from the highlights last year. Eric Ebron left, which means there's extra targets to be had. What's his name? Marvin Jones, I think, is like 6'2", but he's definitely not as big as Golladay is. Ebron was replaced by Luke Wilson from Seattle. His career high in receptions was only 22, so he's not really a threat to catch many passes. Golladay only averaged 4.4 targets per game. And as a rookie, that should definitely increase. I mean, I hope he gets somewhere between like 6 and 7 targets per game. That would definitely inflate his stats. He's expected to be the receiver opposite of Marvin Jones. Of course, Golden Tate will be in the slot. So, I mean, all the opportunity is there for Golladay. The Lions love throwing the ball deep. Matt Stafford has a huge arm. They have a new coaching staff in there. We're just, a new coach. Patricia's coaching the Lions now. I think Jim Bob Cooter, the guy with the funny name, is still their offensive coordinator. So I hope Golladay is able to stay healthy, and he definitely has a ton of upside. So if you're looking for a huge upside pick, a guy that could be like a high-end wide receiver 2 or low-end 1, Kenny Golladay could be that guy. It might take a Marvin Jones injury to do so, but if those guys can coexist with each other, that would be awesome. So I'm definitely going to be targeting Golladay late in drafts, and he's a big upside play, but if he hits, then you look like a genius. So I'm definitely taking that chance. Up next, this is an interesting one. So Dallas Cowboys receiver Allen Hurns, who apparently is the clear-cut #1 according to Cowboys reporters. You always like to hear that. Hurns is 26, coming from Jacksonville, of course. His teammate Terrence Williams, who was expected to be the one, is facing a possible suspension for like public intoxication or something like that. I'm not really sure what the story was. I think he may have crashed his car or something like that. I don't know, crazy stuff. But anyway, so reasons to buy into Allen Hurns, who his ADP is 118, so I mean, he's not really being counted on in drafts this year. So we've seen Hurns do it before in 2015. In 2015, he had over 1,000 yards and over 10 touchdowns with Blake Bortles. So I'm not a huge Dak Prescott guy, but I do believe Dak is better than Blake Bortles, definitely more accurate. Jason Witten's gone, so Dak's going to need a new guy. Des Bryant's gone, even though Des really hasn't been good since Dak was there. But, Dak's going to be looking for new receivers, and Cole Beasley and guys like that can't really do it all. So Allen Hurns needs to step in and do some big things. Of course, Hurns could be a bust, but I think the opportunity here is just too good to ignore. I'm a Giant fan, so I really hope Hurns does nothing. But his opportunity is just really good. So, I mean, that's the reason I'd be looking to draft Hurns. So maybe Dak breaks out his third year. I don't know. Once again, I hope not. But if he does, then Allen Hurns could have a really good year and could be like a solid wide receiver 2 all year. So, that's an opportunity that in the, pick 118, I would definitely take the opportunity on that if he fell to me. Next, we have a running back that I think too many people are sleeping on. It's Kenneth Dixon of the Baltimore Ravens. I almost said Baltimore Orioles. Wow. But anyway, so Dixon's going to be in his 3rd year. This is his 2nd year playing. Last season he came in. He was going to be suspended. He ended up having a knee injury, and he was pretty much done for the year due to injuries / suspension. The good news was he was able to serve his suspension last year, so he won't be missing any games as far as I know this year. But the reason to buy into Dixon is he's pretty talented. From what I watched 2 years ago, I liked the way he played. There was a game against the Patriots on national TV. I think it was Monday Night Football, and he was given like the starting role, and Dixon did a really nice job. I forget if the Ravens won that game. I think it was close, but anyway, Dixon really impressed me. So basically, his competition this year is going to be Javorius Allen and Alex Collins. Alex Collins last year was traded at the end of preseason, I believe, from Seattle to the Ravens. So it's not like Alex Collins is this high pedigree player. I mean, he did have a really nice year, so I'll give him his credit. Javorius Allen last year, they were talking about cutting him before the season. He stepped in, did some nice things for a little bit in the middle of the year, but Allen never really has impressed me with his talent. So I'm not worried about him. So if Dixon could somehow step in and, just be like really good like he was 2 years ago and kind of outshine Collins, then he could be the starter. And Dixon definitely has the build to be a 3-down back. Joe Flacco is definitely not that good of a quarterback, so they might be leading on the run a lot this year. And if Dixon shows he can get it done, then you know what? If he's getting drafted at 181, I'm definitely taking that chance on a guy like Dixon who could, potentially be a 3-down back. I mean, anytime you're picking this late, it's a real gamble. But I think with the scenario he's given right now, I think Dixon has a decent chance at getting a lot of carries this year and being really effective. So he's a guy I'm definitely targeting. Next, another running back, and this guy actually might be cut before the season, so if he does, I'll sound like a jackass. But for now, he's on the Jets, and he came up from Seattle. Thomas Rawls, 25 years old. His ADP is 307, so depending on how big your league is, he might go undrafted. But I think he has a good opportunity here. So let's look at his competition. Isaiah Crowell, coming from Cleveland, of course. People drafted Crowell in the 3rd round. I was one of them last year. And he really severely underperformed. I forget what his stats were. I don't really have them on top of my head, but he was not good at all. Bilal Powell, who, he was expected to be really good last year, like a PPR guy, never really panned out. Powell had some good games. I remember he had that run against Jacksonville where, he tripped over himself and scored, so that was a good week. But, Powell overall wasn't really that good last year, playing alongside Matt Forte. They had Elijah McGuire, who was a rookie last year. He averaged 3.6 per carry. Did have some bright moments, but he's only a 6th-round pick, so it's not like they have that much invested in him. And, we've seen Thomas Rawls do it before. The year that Rawls was a rookie in 2015, Marshawn Lynch went out with a back injury for a few weeks. Rawls stepped in and set the world on fire. He was averaging 5.6 per carry. He honestly reminds me of Russell Westbrook, but in a football player form. The way they play is very similar. Thomas Rawls just tries to run you over. He plays with so much passion. I love it. I love watching guys play like that. And he's been hindered by injuries and stuff the last few years. He's just been ineffective, and I do think somewhere down that Thomas Rawls, the good Thomas Rawls, is still there, and I'm hoping that this is the year, and I'm hoping that he's completely healthy. And I don't think Crowell's that good. He's never really impressed me too much. Bilal Powell can catch passes, but he's not really a between the tackles type runner. And Elijah McGuire, whatever, he's a 6th-round pick, not really all that impressive last year. So if Thomas Rawls can be somewhat of that guy his rookie year, he might be the starter by the end of the year. So, if you're in a 14, 16-team league or something like that, and you're looking for a guy who might be a big hit this year, then go take Thomas Rawls. It's not worth taking guys that are 30 years old. Take a chance on a guy like Rawls who's in his prime and might be given a chance. If I'm in a big league, I'm definitely going to be taking a chance on Rawls because I do happen to love him as a player. I did have him in his big year in 2015, so, I always have that connection with him. So, if you do have a late pick and you want someone with upside, definitely go with Thomas Rawls. Next, and that's Brandon Marshall. He does play in the NFL still. Some of you probably thought he was retired now. Brandon Marshall, 34 years old. His ADP is 227. He is now with the Seattle Seahawks, and I found that very interesting. He played 5 games, I believe, with the Giants last year, and didn't look all that good, but the Giants overall looked like shit, so who cares? Marshall, for a 34-year-old, he's still in incredible shape and really shouldn't be judging his performance for last year. As a Giant fan, I'm throwing that season out the window, so forget about it. If all goes well for Marshall, he will be across from Doug Baldwin as the number 2 wide receiver. The Seahawks lost Jimmy Graham, of course, went to the Packers. Tyler Lockett's going to be in the slot, and there's not much of a threat for Marshall at the 2nd wide receiver. I think Jaron Brown is there. It's either John Brown or Jaron. I think it's Jaron Brown from the Cardinals. So that'll be his competition for the 2nd spot. But Russell Wilson's going to need a red zone threat. Marshall, of course, is 6'4". Just 3 years ago, had 14 touchdowns, almost 110 catches, over 1,500 yards. That was just 3 years ago. So, I understand Marshall's 34 years old. No one wants to draft a guy that old, but we've seen receivers at that age do it before. And, guys like Terrell Owens and Chad Ochocinco, they stuck around for a long time. And, Marshall's obviously coming off a few surgeries last year, so it wasn't an ideal situation. He was on a bad team, and Seattle's going to be down a lot this year. I don't think they're going to be that good as they were in the past. They lost a lot of guys on defense. Russell Wilson's going to be scrambling, doing his thing, looking for a guy down the field, and that guy could very well be Brandon Marshall. So if you're in a big league, a 16, 18, 20-team league, and you want a late pick, you want to take a chance on a guy who might be good and still has something left in the tank, definitely take Brandon Marshall. I like his opportunity this year. playing alongside Doug Baldwin. He's a big guy. He might be their go-to guy in the red zone, so definitely take a chance on Brandon Marshall if you're in a big league. Back over to tight ends, it's a new team and an interesting situation for Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I'll be calling him ASJ for the rest of this, of course. He's 25 years old, coming over from the Jets. His ADP is 175, so not too high. Definitely a lot of upside there. I mean, Blake Bortles is not the most accurate quarterback, as we all know, and throwing to a guy as big as ASJ doesn't seem like a bad idea. So, there's not much competition for targets in Jacksonville. They do have Marquise Lee, Dante Moncrief, who I do like, came from the Colts. He really doesn't stay healthy too much, though. DJ Chark from LSU, he's a rookie. He was actually very impressive in college, so he might be another threat. But anyway, ASJ, he does serve as a big target, as I said. He did have a pretty decent year for the Jets last year, over 50 catches, almost 400 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Doesn't sound like a great year, but he did do better than the year previous, definitely. I think he missed some games for a suspension the year before that. But ASJ is just like an upside guy. I mean, he should have had a better year last year. If you owned ASJ last year like I did, you went through a lot of heartbreaking moments. There were many weeks I would watch Red Zone, see Austin Seferian-Jenkins would score a touchdown. You're like, all right, nice. ASJ scored a touchdown. And then 5 minutes later, it'd be overturned. Of course, that call against the Patriots, everyone was confused about that. I still am. It made no sense to me. So ASJ was robbed of at least 2 or 3 touchdowns last year. That definitely would have, he definitely would have had a better outcome. He should have had 6 touchdowns overall. But oh well. We definitely get a lower value on him this year. So I'm interested. I mean, if you're in a big league and say everyone else is drafted a tight end and you're just stuck with some crappy options, I mean, go see if ASJ is there. I mean, he could get 5 or 6 catches every week, 40, 50 yards, and might find the end zone. So if he could do something like that, that'll be good enough as a top 10 tight end for a season. He is a talented player, so as long as he got his head on straight, he'll definitely be all right. Blake Bortles needs his big targets, so I mean, I would take a shot on ASJ. On to a quarterback. This guy had a crazy year last year. He was playing pretty well for them. For some reason the Bills never liked Tyrod Taylor. He was playing pretty well, as I said. Nate Peterman comes in, hold my beer, 5 picks later. They go back to kissing Tyrod's ass, brings them to the playoffs, and, they lost a close one in Jacksonville, I remember. I think he actually got hurt on the last drive, and Peterman came in and threw a pick. How funny is that? Anyway, so this year he's in Cleveland. Of course, Baker Mayfield's there competition-wise. It doesn't seem like Baker's going to be playing at all this year. It seems like it's Tyrod's job. His ADP is 184, so I mean, you can get him late. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, I think Tyrod Taylor is very interesting. If you're in a 1-quarterback league and you want to draft a few quarterbacks, Tyrod's definitely worth taking. Look at the opportunity for him. I believe Todd Haley's there as their offensive coordinator, if I remember correctly. He was with Pittsburgh. But his weapons this year are crazy. Josh Gordon's going to come back. Hopefully he's healthy. Hopefully he stays away from suspensions. Jarvis Landry's going to be the safety blanket option. Corey Coleman's pretty talented on the outside. And Njoku, who we talked about before, is there. Carlos Hyde's there to run the ball. And Duke Johnson can pretty much do it all. Duke Johnson can, he makes a lot of players miss. He can catch the ball in the backfield. And I think Tyrod Taylor's always been overlooked. I feel bad for him, honestly. You look at his stats. I mean, 51 touchdowns and 18 interceptions in his career. That's a pretty damn good ratio. His rating is 91.2 for his career, so he's definitely not a bad player. Never had great weapons in Buffalo. I mean, last year he had an injured Kelvin Benjamin, Charles Clay, Zay Jones was dropping everything thrown his way. So, they need to give this guy some help. This year he has it. I don't know how things are going to go with Todd Haley and Tyrod. I have no idea. I remember Ben Roethlisberger really never got along with him, but it's a new opportunity, so we'll see what happens with Tyrod. I'm very interested, and if you're a late-round quarterback type of guy, Tyrod is definitely an option for you. And another quarterback, this one is Marcus Mariota, the former 2nd overall pick. His ADP is 126. He'll be 24 years old this season. The Titans parted ways with Mike Mularkey, which is great for Mariota. Mularkey was one of those older guys who was really stubborn, and it was his way or the highway type of guy, and his offense apparently was outdated and not suited for a guy like Mariota with his skill set. They brought in Mike Vrabel. I don't know much about him, honestly. I didn't even read into him, but He can't be much worse than what Mike Mularkey was. So before his injury last year, or injuries I should say, Mariota averaged 18 points before getting injured. He was believed to have played with ankle injuries and hamstring injuries last year, and I put Russell Wilson in parentheses there because 2 years ago Russell Wilson was playing injured. He had both of his ankles wrapped up the entire year. I remember week 1 in 2016, Ndamukong Suh landed on both of Russell Wilson's ankles, limiting his mobility. Russell still played through the whole season, but wasn't nearly as effective, so that's kind of what Marcus Mariota went through last year. He played all of last season in a knee brace, and it definitely took away some of his speed. According to reports this year, he's looking much faster, looking like a much better player. And, of course, his weapons for the Titans, we have Rashard Matthews, good player. Corey Davis, the 5th pick, I believe, from last year. Missed a lot of games. I think he was hurt. Delaney Walker, the reliable tight end they have. And Dion Lewis from the Patriots. That's an interesting one. They do have Derrick Henry in the backfield, but he's not really a pass catcher, so I didn't include him there. But Dion Lewis definitely excites me, and I think he's a really good player. So Marcus Mariota looks like he has the right atmosphere and right people around him. Hopefully he has the right coach as well, and if he does, he could be a really nice steal as a late quarterback, and he's going outside the top 12, so he might be on your bench, but at least keep him on the bench, give him a try, and see how good Marcus is this year. Next, we have Josh Doctson. I thought last year was going to be the year for him. It just never fully happened. He had a pretty good year, though. I think he had over 500 receiving yards last season. He's going to be 25 years old this year. His ADP is 153. Very high upside player, so I like him with Alex Smith coming in this year, replacing Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was not good at all in the red zone, like the last 3 years, and that wasn't really talked about a lot, but he was not good at all there. Alex Smith should definitely help. Alex Smith also was rated the most accurate deep passer last year. That definitely helps. But Doctson last year had 78 targets. He finished with 35 catches, 500 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So 6 touchdowns with Kirk Cousins, who wasn't good in the red zone. That's not bad at all. So, I think Alex Smith's a better quarterback. I was never really a big Kirk Cousins guy. His competition for targets is going to be Jordan Reed, who never seems to play. He only played half the games the last 2 seasons. Chris Thompson's coming off a broken fibula. If he comes back, he's a really good player, but can't really count on that coming off an injury. Jamison Crowder was supposed to be their guy last year. He never really came on. He just declined from the last season, so that was really disappointing. And Paul Richardson came from Seattle. I do like Paul Richardson. He's a deep ball player. So him and Alex Smith might have a good connection, and I do think Richardson's going to be pretty, he might be pretty good for fantasy this year, but he'll kind of be like a hit and miss type of guy, like a Ted Ginn type of player, or like Mike Wallace back in the day. But I think from a full season standpoint, I think Josh Doctson's going to be the most reliable Redskins receiver as long as he stays healthy. He himself promised big things this year. I'm sure he's very impatient and he wants to have that big year, so I'm hoping that this will be it. This might be his last chance. If he doesn't really do much this year, his career just might be shot after that. So Doctson, I've seen him play a lot. He does have the talent. I hope him and Alex Smith develop some kind of connection, and if they do, then we might see Josh Doctson as the wide receiver 2 in fantasy football. So it'll be interesting. As long as he gets the targets and stays on the field, he should be fine. So I'm wishing Josh Doctson the best this year. And our last player here, 32-year-old running back, one of the funniest humans on the planet, Marshawn Lynch. His ADP is 74. I was trying to go outside the top 100 here to kind of, make it like a sleeper type label thing, but I think Marshawn's being overlooked this year. So last year, he did have a pretty decent year, almost 900 yards, 4.3 a carry, 7 touchdowns. The Raiders overall just had a really crappy year. Derek Carr was out for, a few games, and but you look at this year, Marshawn Lynch's only real competition is Doug Martin. They still have DeAndre Washington there, who's never really impressed me that much. Jalen Richard, I call him Jalen Richard, it's more fun. But anyway, John Gruden's going to be there this year, and he's kind of got that old school approach. He wants Marshawn Lynch to be his back. Some quotes from Gruden this year were, "He is our leading ball carrier, he's our back, and we're counting on him." So if John Gruden, who, he probably expects Marshawn Lynch is going to be his last year, he might just try and run Marshawn Lynch into the ground. And you know what? As a fantasy owner, you love seeing that. I think Marshawn, he barely came back this year, so he might just, put it all out there this year and see what happens. So I've never been a big Doug Martin guy. I honestly don't think he's that good. Ever since his rookie year, he's not impressed me that much. He did have one good year after that, but that was it. Doug Martin's been disappointing ever since. But you look at this team, the Raiders overall. They have Amari Cooper, Jordy Nelson, Martavis Bryant on the outside, and I said they're really not going to be able to stack the box against this team. So it should open a lot of holes for Marshawn Lynch. It's hard enough to bring him down as it is. So it kind of was a down year for Lynch, from his normal standards last year. But I think if he gets enough carries, which I do think he'll get, the Raiders do a pretty good offensive line. I mean, they have Donald Penn, they have a good left guard. I forget his name; it's hard to pronounce, but they do a pretty good team there. So I think if you give Marshawn Lynch enough carries, Doug Martin's probably going to disappoint, and Marshawn Lynch might be a big surprise this year. He can definitely score 10 touchdowns. He's known to do that. The Raiders are going to have a good offense this year, you would think, as long as Carr stays healthy. So Marshawn Lynch it's a bit of a risk. He's going 74, as I said, so kind of high, but I mean, if you look at a competition standpoint, there's really no one to challenge him there, so I like the position Marshawn Lynch is in. And finally, the last segment here, so I'm going to do value picks, guys that are being overlooked this year. Emmanuel Sanders, his quarterback, is now Case Keenum. He's coming off a down year last year. I think he's being overlooked. We saw what Keenum did with Adam Thielen last year, who was his number 2 wide receiver. Thielen was probably like a low-end wide receiver 1. I don't really know off the top of my head, but he had a really good year. I could see Sanders doing the same thing for Denver this year. Next, we go to Sammy Watkins, new location. Last year, he was kind of a decoy for the Rams with Sean McVay. Now goes to the Chiefs with Andy Reid, who knows how to use his players. He'll be playing alongside Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and then coached by Andy Reid, as I just said. Next, on to a quarterback. Cam Newton's being overlooked. New offensive coordinator, Norv Turner. They have a really stacked offense. They have Greg Olsen, Devin Funchess, Torrey Smith, DJ Moore, CJ Anderson, Christian McCaffrey, and of course Cam himself. So I think the Panthers can be a scary team offensively this year, and you really want the quarterback. Cam Newton's still only 29 years old, still in his prime, so take a shot on him. Next, Pierre Garçon, who I'm excited about. Missed a lot of time with a neck injury last year. Comes back with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jerick McKinnon's added. Marquise Goodwin came on last year. They have a new center in Richburg. So, I think he could be a really good option as long as he stays healthy. Garçon's a really good player. And for PPR leagues especially, Duke Johnson Jr., he was second in missed tackles last season, signed a 3-year extension for $15.5 million with the Browns, which shows their commitment to him, and coming off a career-high 74 receptions. So if you're in a PPR league, definitely give Duke Johnson a look. I think he's going to have a nice year backing up Carlos Hyde. So that's it for this video. If you stayed all the way through, I appreciate it. I really hope this helps you guys. This is pretty much what I'm going to go off of this year, so I hope these guys have a good year. If not, I apologize, but I'm just trying my best out here. So I hope this helps you guys, and thanks for watching.